Hello, Casey Marticorena. How are you today?
I'm great, Don. How are you?
Good. Before we get into the topic today, I should let everybody know that we're filming this on,
Exhibit A?
filming Exhibit A on Valentine's
Oh,
Day. Now, it's probably going to be viewed by our viewers, a week or so from now and stuff. But it's interesting how we have these little holidays throughout the year. And when I was younger, I always thought, "What? Come on, man! What are we spending all this time, man? Going to the store and buying candy, and it's just a hassle. And I gotta get another gift for my wife or whatever." But I think that as I'm getting older, it's like, man, I like these things. It just brings a little sweetness to life. No pun intended.
yeah. Well, it's all about traditions and creating memories. And if we just work and work and work, we're just working to die. We have to celebrate and have little things that keep people motivated and happy. So I think it's super positive, and we're celebrating here today at the firm where we have a little Valentine's Day, event going on. Everyone's excited about it.
Yeah, it seems like we need a little excuse to have a little party around here, which is cool. So today's topic is going to be a serious one. It's a serious legal issue, and it deals with abduction of children, right?
That's right.
Okay, and the reason why, Casey and I decided that we were going to do this podcast is that she's had a lot of experience with these type of cases. The firm has had a lot of experience with them. Casey's recently just done another one, and we're going to try to educate our viewers as to what it's all about. Why abduction happens, where it happens, and what the law says that we could do in response to that.
That's right.
Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit first about what the basic law is concerning if you want to move away with your kids. I mean, is it proper to load up the kids in your station wagon and move to Nevada without letting the other side know?
Absolutely not. It's not okay. In fact, what you have to do is you have to go through the proper channels. You have to get permission from the other parent. Otherwise, you have to file a motion with the court. The court calls it relocation request. Family law attorneys, we call it move away law. And there's very specific law on how the court's going to analyze that. And that's one of the most, from what I hear from judges, one of the most difficult decisions because the stakes are so high. So it's either going to be, yes, you can, the parent can move, but it's going to be either, yes, you can take your children with you, or no, you cannot. Children have to stay back in California. But you definitely need a court order in order to do that.
Yeah, so everybody should know that the other parent deserves, by the law, notice and opportunity. Doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to move, but you simply can't put the kids in the station wagon and drive to another state or put them on a plane and go to another country and think all's going to be okay, right?
Exactly. And, there's a whole area of law and a lot of circumstances that the court's going to look at to determine if that's going to be okay. Who's the primary parent? Why are you moving? Is it because you have a job opportunity? Is it because you have family support that you don't have in California? And at the end of the day, it all comes down to what's in the best interest of the children.
Okay. Let me give you a hypothetical. Okay.
Sure.
John's an electrician. He works long hours. He's been in a marriage for about 10 years, and there's 2 children in the marriage. They're minors. Okay. One day, John comes home, and remember, it's not a real happy marriage, but the family's still intact. And he walks through the front door, and nobody's in the house. And in fact, he looks through the bedrooms of the kids. He looks at his wife's closet, and everything's taken out. And suddenly, he realizes they moved out. Okay, let's just stop right there. Okay, now the fact that the wife may have moved out of the home without him knowing while he was at work, does that invoke any type of criminality, or is there anything improper about that?
Well, if I were representing John, I would say leave a note, let the other party know. Or excuse me, if I were representing the other party, I would leave a note for John, letting him know what's going on. At this point in the hypothetical, the wife has moved out. I would expect that very soon she's going to say, hey, I moved down the street. Here's my address. Here's my new phone number. I expect that that's what's going to happen. If that's not what happens, then we're going to get into what we're discussing today.
We're going to have a problem.
Then we're going to have a problem.
Okay, so let's move on with our John story. And what happens is that, he contacts family members, friends. Nobody knows where the wife and kids are. and he continues to search over a day or two, and there's no word. And another day goes by, and eventually a week goes by, and he comes into your office and he says, Casey, I'm just terrified. She's got family members, in Mexico. She has frequently talked about wanting to move back to Mexico. She also likes other states. She never really liked California. I think that she's moved away. And I don't know if I could ever get her back. Can you help me? What would you say to him?
So at this point, I'm going to dig a little deeper. I'm going to evaluate the case. The case is going to fall in one of two buckets. Either way, we're most likely going into court for an emergency ex parte order. The case is either one of she left, it's an illegal, improper relocation, move away case. She should have sought court permission before leaving, but we think we know where she may be. We think we can serve her with paperwork. We think she'll cooperate with the legal process. That's one bucket. The other bucket is based on the circumstances. She took the passports. She, like you said, she's been indicating that she's going to move to Mexico. She's a flight risk. Are there any mental health concerns? I'm asking all of these questions to determine, is this more than just a improper move or relocation? Is this a concealment child abduction case? If it falls into that bucket, then we're talking about filing a different type of motion, which is called, we call it a Family Code 3130 motion.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what that means, 3130?
Absolutely. So what we're doing, this is a very powerful tool where the family court is going to work with the district attorney's office. And you're essentially getting an order in family court asking the DA to either serve paperwork, locate this person and serve paperwork, or you're asking the DA to locate and retrieve the child and essentially bring the child back to California. And I think that's a very powerful tool, especially for a parent that's completely helpless.
Yeah. I got to tell you that when I got into family law coming from the DA's office, I felt like my power in this world had kind of diminished a little bit because, and as a former detective, I used to write search warrants. And what do? You go to the judge's chambers and, hey, judge, can I talk to you? Yeah, come on in. And you have to justify. And then before you know it, you got permission to go into somebody's home, right, to search or to go out and arrest somebody. Sometimes the judges are crabby. And sometimes you have to go to their homes and they're drinking a beer, and that's like, really unusual. but it gives you a little sense of power, and stuff. And you get into family court and you go, yeah, I kind of miss that. But really, it's the same thing, is that you're not asking the DA's office, or the court is, and the court's actually ordering the DA's office to do something, right?
Exactly. I think oftentimes, our work, we get these, very detailed court orders, and at the end of the day, what are they? They're pieces of paper. If no one is following them, or you don't have the power to get them enforced, then you want something a little bit more powerful. In a case of a child abduction, or if we think someone is a flight risk, then certainly you want something more powerful. So I agree with you. I think that getting the district attorney involved in all of the things that they can do that us as family law attorneys, we cannot, is definitely a powerful tool.
Okay. So let's talk about the DA's office. They have a special unit regarding this, which I didn't know until I became a family law attorney. Could you describe what that unit is and, how we get into contact with them?
So every county has a child abduction unit through the district attorney's office. So I've worked with LA County and Orange County on my cases, and they essentially tell you, you can call them and say, I have this situation, this is happening. They say to you, they don't even want to talk to you until you first go through your family law attorney and get your Family Code 3130 order through the family court, meaning, district attorney, please locate and retrieve my child. And then once you do that, then you open up a case with the child abduction unit, and they have an entire separate process. But what your family law attorney is going to be doing is working on your family law case, and at the same time getting you ready to go through the child abduction unit, which is a whole separate process.
Yeah, you gave me some materials prior to today's podcast, and I was looking through them, and very impressive. They have an investigative bureau dedicated to relocating and getting kids. So let's assume hypothetically that John's wife has in fact moved to Las Vegas, and she's got the kids kind of hidden. What is the DA's office going to do in a situation like that, or what can they do for you?
Well, the very specific details are confidential. Trust me, I've tried. I've tried to call over and just kind of peruse and say, what are you going to do about this? And they very clearly told me exactly how we do it. We have no obligation to share that information with you. It's confidential, but just trust that we're working on it. But in general, they can fly over there. They can go and go to the home. They can retrieve the child. As far as I know, they can also work with the FBI to flag passports and things like that. But backing up, I want to say that once you get the family court order, you have to file a very lengthy questionnaire with the child abduction unit. It outlines all of the information about the other parent, the details, nicknames and descriptions of the child. And my pro tip is have that packet ready so that when you walk out, hopefully your family law attorney is successful in getting the 3130 order. And then you have your packet ready and you send your client to the child abduction unit to drop off the entire packet and get moving right away. So that's my pro tip. And then they can get started on, locating the child.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, they could get the FBI involved. I do know from prior cases also that they could get local law enforcement involved as well. Because a lot of times you want feet on the ground. If there's like a tip or something, they want the locals to help them and stuff.
Right.
So what about international cases? I mean, let's switch it a little bit. And the wife went to Guadalajara, has got the kids over there, and there's a tip, and all of a sudden, can the DA's office actually fly people out over there?
I believe that they work with the FBI. I know that I have my clients I have them request from the child abduction unit that there be passports be flagged. But there's also a mechanism for someone to go in through a website and flag the passport of a minor child to make sure that they don't leave the country so that they can't go to Mexico. But from my understanding, there's also a mechanism to work with authorities to locate the child and retrieve the child. But that gets into a whole other area as far as signatories to Hague and all of these other things that are involved with those international cases.
Okay. Can you get into a little bit more detail about the process? I mean, you just did one, so it's like really fresh on your mind. Could you talk about like step by step what you had to do in order to get the law enforcement involved in our recent case?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the first step is really a detailed interview with your client, and you're really kind of sifting through, figuring out what's going on. What are the circumstances under which the person took off? How long have they been gone? Are they a flight risk? I'm evaluating, ties or lack of ties to California. I'm also looking at, like I mentioned, are there, mental health concerns? Was there domestic violence in this marriage? I'm looking at all of those factors and then determining if this is, a true, abduction, or if this is, someone just took off and they shouldn't have taken off and they're at their mom's house. I'm figuring out what kind of motion I'm going to file. And then the next step is going to be going to family court and asking for exactly what you want. The 3130 order can be very, there are very specific findings and very specific orders that you have to request because the DA is relying on that piece of paper in order to go out and do whatever they need to do. And then the next step is child abduction unit. You give them the 3130 order. And then
you said that there's like a checklist of things at this point, right? That it has to be. What are some of the other things that have to be checked off before they take the case?
Essentially, they want the questionnaire, they want the 3130 order, they want a copy of the birth certificate, and photographs of the minor child. Okay. Those are the 4 things that we have in this packet. And then, there's a return court date. And the goal is to have the child retrieved, located by the time that court date. And the DA helps get the other parent and the child into court so that the court can enforce a custody order. What I'm asking for in that circumstance, I'm asking for, at this point, a temporary order for sole custody. And the reasoning behind it is the other party, is a flight risk at this point.
And potentially committed a criminal act, right?
Correct.
We did have one case several years ago where we got the DA involved, and we asked the judge to switch custody until we got to the hearing, and the judge said no. Ordered the mom back. And she was actually in Vegas with the kids, and so I guess that's not an automatic thing, but of course we would ask for that because of the seriousness of what the other spouse has done.
Well, I would ask Dawn how long ago that took place, because just in my almost 13 years of practice, I've seen
Are you
it.
calling me old?
No, I'm not calling you old. I'm just saying that I see different trends. And maybe when I started practicing law 13 years ago, not that long ago, but long enough, there was certain things that would fly or not fly. But I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter if it's mom or dad, who took the child. I want to say there's more focus on the elimination of gender bias. And I want to say that it's taken very seriously. And I think as a family law attorney, it's very alarming to hear about a parent taking off with a child. And I can surmise that for a judge, it's just almost, it's scary, it's insulting. If I were a judge, I wouldn't want a child disappearing on my watch. So I'm gonna make the most aggressive order necessary to make sure that child doesn't leave the country
Again, right? Yeah, or
Right.
leave the jurisdiction. Well, there are some situations where the spouse and the children go into a domestic violence shelter. Have you
right.
encountered any of those?
Absolutely.
And they're not necessarily that far away from that we know, and we never really know where they're at. But they could actually go into a local DV shelter, and we would never know. So, what kind of situations have you seen, and how does the DA deal with that type of problem?
So it's essentially, a victim. It's essentially a defense to the abduction allegation. It's to say that a victim of domestic violence can take refuge in a DV shelter with the child, and they're going to be provided, not only shelter but also resources, legal aid. They're going to receive, what they should do. The proper thing to do is file paperwork both in family court and with the district attorney's office, alerting them and saying, "Here I am. I have the child. We're safe. We're in this shelter. My exact location is confidential because I'm a victim of domestic violence."
Don't you think the shelters should be helping those people notify the DA's office? I mean, there should be some, I don't know if there is, but it just seems like that should be an automatic.
Well, what I encountered recently this year is a district attorney form. It's almost like an excuse slip. It's a form signed by the person saying, essentially, I have not abducted my child. Here I am. And the reason that the reason that I haven't communicated with the other party is because I'm a victim of domestic violence. So this is very resourceful for a victim of domestic violence that needs to leave, doesn't have the means to, doesn't have a place to go. What this victim of DV cannot do is, sit on their hands and not file anything in family court, not alert the district attorney's office, because then it's just plain abduction. On the other hand, this can be something that can be abused, right? If it's not a true victim of domestic violence, and this is just kind of to be used as an excuse to conceal, then in effect they're going to delay the other parent for several months from seeing their child.
Yeah.
And by the way, I learned that concealing a child is illegal, and getting a custody order after the fact is not a defense. So, it can be a little tricky, but at the end of the day, the 3130 order is going to take a back seat to the DV allegation. So that we're going to have to figure out what happened if there's domestic violence. That's going to happen in either criminal court or family court, and then once all of that is resolved, then we'll see kind of where the 3130 order is going to land.
Yeah. We had one case, I think that you worked on it, but I'm not sure. It was several years ago, where the woman took off with the child and was going from shelter to shelter to shelter in various states. And it was like she was on the run, and she would, kind of be like that. And it happened for years, if I recall right, like maybe 2 years. And she was finally found, and I think she had some problems when she got into family court because of her conduct and stuff. So at the very least, what people should know, if we're on the other side, is that, you're in a shelter, but we need to make sure that we're doing it legally we're getting into court, getting restraining orders, and taking care of business in a legal way. The self-help thing doesn't really help.
Yeah, and I will say I did encounter a situation where a mother did nothing, and she was in the shelters, and she was eventually criminally prosecuted for having done that and not taken the proper legal mechanisms.
Can you talk about what an ex parte hearing is? Because some of our viewers, a lot of people do know what that is, but some of them don't. What does that mean, an ex parte motion?
When we have an emergency situation, so if I file a motion with the court, I'm asking the court for relief on certain things. If I file a motion today, I probably won't get into court until March, maybe early April. Some situations cannot wait that long. They are emergencies, meaning procedurally, I give either no notice to the other side or I give 24 hours notice, and I go into the court and just immediately ask for relief. And, I'm doing that when there's, the risk of harm or injury to a child, or a flight risk, or a child that's been abducted. I'm doing that under those circumstances.
Yeah, there was a case a while back where somebody went into another country, I think, and it was like a famous case a few years ago. I remember that in the media, and that was when I started really paying attention to this stuff, because people could hide out for a long time, and the ex parte gives you an opportunity to get in right away without, maybe you could stop somebody from getting to the airport if you do an ex parte, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that done where you can stop someone before, and then I've seen cases where people are stopped at the airport.
Wow.
Yes, someone was stopped at the airport before they got on a flight, and they were going to the Caribbean with a minor child.
Wow. In most cases, the court is going to deny ex parte matters when it deals with custody, but abduction is one where the code specifically says you could go in on an ex parte. That means like go in, immediately and seek relief.
Right. And, you have to do a really good job of showing the court what is the emergency. I always page 1, bold, underline, what is my emergency? I state it there, and then I can go into the details, as the document goes on. But that's it. The judge needs something to hang their hat on to make sure, because they don't want to encourage people to abuse the ex parte, process.
Yeah. So without divulging any names or cases that you've worked on or dates or anything like that, can you describe some of the reactions that you've received from your clients when you've been successful in working with the DA to recover the whereabouts of their children?
Well, clearly it's an emotional time. I would say in family law, it's top 2 or 3 high stakes cases, very emotional, and I cannot even imagine what the parents are going through. And it's, obviously I approach them with as much compassion as possible, and, very emotional and very happy and very grateful.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And I've seen that with your clients. We had a case, now this was probably about maybe 10 years ago, where the father and his mother came in and said, hey, the wife, actually, I don't think they're married. The girlfriend and the son had left. We think that they're in the Sacramento area. We gotten the DA involved, and when they got the mechanism going, they located the sheriff's department up there, and they found the kid in a drug den, in a horrible, horrible situation. And I can't tell you how satisfying that felt, from an attorney's point of view, that we did something significant like that to get that kid out of there and stuff. So, it's good stuff, and I'm glad that, we got you on board, because you're our lady that knows how to do things like this. So thank you very much for today. I know that we'll be on again sometime soon, but if anybody has any questions concerning abduction, then feel free to contact us, and I'll make sure that Casey talks to you, because she's very expert in this. Thank you again for joining us on Exhibit A, and thank you, Casey.
Thank you, Don.
Okay.